Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. Today is a special day because I'm recording this on Wednesday, the 3rd of June, 2026. And in 1 hour, my friend Cleo Battle, who's leading the DMO in Louisville, is going to be recognized by MPI, an Industry Leadership Award. And as he said himself, this is not a Lifetime Achievement Award, but it's a leadership award. And I thought it will be most appropriate to basically allow you, for those who haven't listened to the episode that I recorded with Cleo in the past, to listen to him, to listen to his story, his inspiring and amazing story in honor of Cleo. So please enjoy this episode with Cleo Battle, and congratulations again, my friend. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with an old friend, Cleo. Cleo Battle is the president and CEO of Louisville Tourism, an amazing person in our industry. And I was just mentioning to him, I hear about Louisville everywhere now since 4 or 5 years, but that's not the purpose of the podcast. The podcast today is about Cleo, his journey, is an amazing and inspiring journey. So, Cleo, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thanks, Eric. Man, it's good to be with you, my friend. Lot of years together.
Yep, that's true. That's true. And we won't talk about cigars and bourbon, right?
No. We'll save that for another time.
Very good. So the first question I always ask our guests is, what is your journey and how did you get into this industry?
You know, the craziest part of my story is that I was a college track and field athlete. I ran hurdles. And so I was in my third year and I was still undecided, as a typical athlete might be. I was still undecided as to what my major was going to be. And I got hurt. I got hurt, tore the muscle in my leg.
Oh.
And, they were very concerned about my ability to recover and run. Of course, I did recover, but they were concerned at the time. So I got very concerned. So now I'm all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I've got to get focused in on what am I going to do with a college education. And I went and talked to a counselor at the school, and we're trying to figure out what direction I wanted to go. And she said, well, yeah, have you ever thought about hotel restaurant management? And I said, no, I don't think I've ever done what a hotel is trashing. So that's all I got. And I signed up for it, started chipping away at the classes. I needed to do an internship in a hotel. I took a bunch of classes, hadn't even stepped foot in a hotel. And I needed to have, I think, 12 or 1,300 hours in the hotel to graduate as an intern. And that took me off. I was a natural. I was a bellman, and then I was a front desk, and then I was an intern in the sales department while I was in college. And I got hired into the management training program for Promise Hotels, which at the time was Embassy Suites, Hampton, Hilton, I think. And yeah, I really took off from there. I'm from Denver originally. And I went from Denver to Phoenix to LA, a little short stint in San Francisco, upstate New York, Richmond, Virginia, and now Kentucky. So wow. I've had a great time in this industry, but yeah, it's what I've been doing. It's I'm one of the few that actually have a degree in this industry. So it's worked out really well.
Absolutely. Most of the other people, including myself, just fell into it by coincidence.
Had I not gotten hurt running hurdles, maybe I would not have fallen into it. But listen, it's been a blessing. I've had a fantastic career. I've made a lot of friends. I have absolutely enjoyed this industry. All the ups and downs that I have seen, from 9/11 to the financial crisis to the pandemic,
Yeah.
I've learned something, I've grown. So it's been a great industry.
When I'm listening to you and about athletes, it's for me like whether it's the athletes or the artist, you practice, you give everything. And when I say you practice more than anybody else. It's hours and hours and hours, and then something in life can happen, and suddenly the whole thing change. In your case, you torn muscle. Somebody's playing piano can get into an accident and maybe lose a finger, and it's over. There's so many instances where you're just focusing on something, and then life is shooting at you, and okay, you have to find something else. What in your training as an athlete and your experience as an athlete are you using or have you been using in your career that you would advise anyone listening to do?
Yeah, it's funny. I've said for a few years now, the title of my book of life will be Learning to Love the Hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
As I ran hurdles. So learning to love the hurdles. And, as an athlete, you have to learn technique. You have to learn speed. You have to train, as you said. And, when you're running hurdles, I had plenty of times where I fell between hurdles. And you had to learn how to have better technique, how to be better at that. And it reminds me a lot of, what we just all went through with the pandemic, adaptability and flexibility. You know, how do you adapt? How do you grow? How do you become more flexible? You can't have, when you're an athlete, you can't have a locked in mindset. I mean, you have got to continue to grow. You have to continue to learn your body, your nutrition, your muscle groups, because your muscle groups and your nutrition are unlike anyone else's. And you have to find the right formula for yourself. And it's very similar to business. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. While what I do is similar to Baltimore or to Austin, Texas, or to Dallas, it's not the same. And I have to do how we're going to be successful in Louisville. You learn the general skills of the industry, and then you adapt and you become flexible, and you learn, how to apply that to what you're doing in Louisville. But yeah, being an athlete to me, is always about working hard for something that you think is important. I mean, people used to say, I can't believe you run hurdles. Like, it was just the craziest thing for people. But I wanted to do it, and I wanted to work hard at it, and I wanted to be really good at it. And that to me is a skill set that I believe any athlete or any musician, they take with them into whatever business they go through. You talked about being a piano player, takes so much time and hours and practice to become good at it. You have that skill set on you inside you. It just doesn't go away when you go to work or when you deal with your family. It stays with you. And so I think those are the things, when I think about being an athlete, how it helps me to continue to fight for something that's important in my day-to-day life.
Awesome. I don't know which artist actually was asked, why do you keep practicing? I don't know if it was the violinist, Itzhak Perlman, or somebody like that. Why do you keep practicing at your age so many hours? And he answered, I'm just getting started.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the mindset of always learning. Now, the other thing that for any athlete that probably comparable to working in our industry is that nobody does it alone.
Yeah.
An athlete has a full staff of trainer, coach, doctors, nutritionists, and everything. So, is this something similar that you realize when you start working in the hospitality industry?
Absolutely. I mean, you're only as good as the people around you. And my old boss from Richmond, Virginia, he had this saying. He'd always tell me, hire well, provide good resources, get the hell out of the way. And he'd say, Cleo, the key to that is hiring well. You can't get to the other two if you don't hire well. And I've always hung on to that. And I tell you, there's another book. I don't know if you know who Doris Kearns Goodwin is.
Nope.
But she wrote a book about Abraham Lincoln called Team of Rivals. And it basically talked about Abraham Lincoln's presidency, how he surrounded himself with some of the best and the brightest minds. But there were some of those folks in his cabinet that weren't aligned with his way of thinking, but they were really good at what they did. And he put them around him, and he hired them anyway. And I think it's always important because you can't get it done by yourself, and you can't assume that you're the alpha and the omega to everything that you're trying to do. There are people that know more than you in particular spaces. As the old saying goes, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. And so, yeah, I've tried to surround myself in every position I have with talent, people who know their skill set, so much so that, as my old boss said, provide the resources and get the hell out of the way and let them do what they do well. And so you don't do it by yourself. I don't know anyone that is successful in this industry who's done it alone. I love when folks come up to me and say, man, Cleo, you got a fantastic team at Louisville Tourism. Thank you. I've been very intentional about having a great team. And so, yeah, it's, as you said about an athlete, you need a team, you need other folks to push you, and you need people to question you. Whatever experience I have, I may feel like this is the right thing to do. But I can tell you, when 3 or 4 of my executive team members say, we don't think that's the right thing, you have to question it. You have to think differently about it. No matter how I feel about it in my gut as the leader, I want my executive team, and they know that. I want them to question me. I want them to push back on things. And we do that to each other. And hopefully, the 6, 7 of us sitting around that table will come out with some great ideas once we've pushed back against each other. But definitely got to have a strong team.
Yeah, you and I are totally aligned on that. And as I always said to the teams I've led, I believe in something, but before I tell you what I believe, I want to hear from you. And as my grandfather would always say, if 2 people tell you that you're drunk, go to bed. If they start saying 3, 4 people the same thing, you know what? Maybe there's something there to analyze. So when you have surrounded yourself with people like that are able to tell you what they think, which it's extremely precious. By the way, everybody talk about safe space. To me, that's BS. It's safe people that create the environment in
Trust.
which exactly.
It's not a safe space. It's a space where you can trust.
Yes.
You can be honest with people. If there's anything, and I know our society is a society today where everyone feels like they've got to agree with everyone. It's like, I don't want that. I can disagree with you. I hope I can disagree with you and you can disagree with me, and I can still go out and have a beer with you.
Yeah.
And you've got to have that kind of trust. I don't know about a safe space, but a space where people can be honest about what they think and know that, well, ultimately, I may make a decision otherwise, but I respect your opinion on this, or vice versa. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it can be that. It's not so much with my executive team, but people have a hard time disagreeing. Constructive criticism is almost something you're going to read in the history books someday. It's like no one wants to be constructive with their criticism any longer. And I don't know what that is. I don't know why we've become so sensitive that if someone disagrees with you, everyone shrivels up and says, "Oh
Hmm.
my God, I can't believe you said that." It's professional, it's business, it's not personal.
Yeah, I fully agree with you there as well. It's interesting to me. When I was living in Belgium, a friend of mine was extremely high ranked into the Socialist Party. And all my friends know what I think about the Socialist Party in Belgium. Okay. I'm not going to go there. But the point I wanted to make is him and I would have dinner once or twice a year, just one on one. Cleo, you would have passed by our table at that moment. You would have thought we were going to kill each other. I was calling him name. You're just a bunch of, you're destroying this country. And then we had dinner. And to your point, I think it's important. I actually love to be around with people that don't think the same way.
That's right.
That it can express. That's also where you get the best ideas, by the way, and where you can start thinking about your own self and the ideas. Now, being in the situation that we are now, as you described, which I don't know how we get there, but I know that we have to get out of there for sure. Do you see any difference, or what would you do to create such an environment where it's okay to disagree before COVID and today, where a lot of the things are happening online and people are not necessarily in the office 5 days a week anymore? How do you manage to create such an environment?
Yeah, I certainly don't think we're perfect around here, but the one thing that I tell my team is that every seat matters. I say that almost every staff meeting, every seat matters.
I like that.
I want you to understand that if you're an administrative assistant or the director of sales or a marketing manager, your seat matters in this organization. So I start with that. And then I try to enable folks. When we have some subject matter going on, I try to invite voices to say, hey, look, and I will start with, talking to my administrative assistant or marketing manager. I'll say, listen, here's what I'm thinking about this. What are your thoughts? And you hope that gives setting the table, gives people an opportunity to say how they feel, to say what their opinion is. So like you said, we may disagree, but between disagreeing, we may find even a better idea. But I do try to help individuals in this organization to understand that their seat matters, their voice matters, the work you do matters to what we're trying to get done here. And so I try to start there and then set a table where folks feel like they can come in and say, be honest with me. I tell you what, my door's rarely ever shut, but it's shut when I'm on something like this. But I can tell you, there's a lot of folks that lightly knock on my door, poke their head and say, Cleo, you got a minute? And while sometimes I don't have that minute, it's important to hear people. Come on in. I can give you a couple of minutes. What's going on with you? I just give people a chance to say what's on their mind and to give their opinion on things. And so, like I said, Eric, I don't think we're perfect around here. We've got a long ways to go to create the environment that we'd like to have, that I'd like to have, and that someone in my organization's 35 would like to have. But, we're trying. We are
Awesome.
trying.
Now, you became, was it like 2 years ago, President CEO of Louisville?
July 21.
July 21. Has your role changed dramatically? Now, before you were maybe busy with more customer, now you have to deal with people around the tourism in the city?
Yes, I'm much more political than I probably would want to be, as probably a lot of my peers would say the same thing. Legislators just got a new mayor. I just had a meeting with the governor just on Saturday. And so, yes, it's a lot more of that than there are talking about customers day in and day out. But I keep myself pretty involved with what we have going on around here so that I don't get too far away. Because, the interesting thing with our business, when you're at a destination marketing organization, we get pulled in a lot of different directions. But rest assured, your hotel industry, if you get too far off path and you're not talking about meetings, conventions, and events that you just booked, they will pull you back very quickly to remind you of what your core mission is. And it's important that we never forget, despite all the other things we do in a community, and certainly organizations like ours, tourism agencies for destinations, are being asked to lean a lot more into community, be a part of product development. And those things are all important. But we better never forget our core mission of bringing visitors to the community. That's what our jobs are. And so, yes, while there's a lot of legislative stuff in my calendar these days, I was at PCMA. I was talking to customers. I mean, you got to stay true to core.
Absolutely.
And my team needs to see that from me as well, that we're not too off path doing things that aren't about rate, states, and space.
Yeah, no, totally. And you had IAEE end of last year.
We did, and we've gotten some really good feedback, and so matter of fact, we got good feedback from the folks at IAEE. You and I are certainly good friends with David Dubois.
Yes.
He had good things to say. And I've heard from some of my peers who said, man, you guys really knocked it out while we were in Louisville. So that always makes it special to hear from your peers, to hear from the organization that you guys did a great job. So yeah, now we got to book a little business from it. It's good to
That's
have
great.
it's good to have all the nice comments, and let's go book some business.
Awesome. Yeah. And I know that you also it's volunteering is very important for you, including our industry. So can you tell a little bit more about the role now that you're embracing?
Yes, as of January 1, I'm the chair of the MPI and the International Board of Directors with the MPI. And, we talked a little bit before we got on, and I can just tell you, whether it's the MPI team, whether it's my team, the most important thing I've said to those folks is that we got to have a mindset of growth, not recovery. We have got to stop talking about recovery and let's talk about growth.
Brilliant.
We have a tremendous amount of work to do, not only for MPI, and that's who I represent, but also for the industry. I mean, we've got, DEI is a big part of what's going on in our industry now. Sustainability is important to our industry clients. Health and wellness are important to our industry clients. How do we deliver that? How do we make sure we're meeting our meeting professionals where they're at? And then you take those three things that are subject matter and you say, well, on top of that, we got the cost of doing business that we've got to all figure out today, because the cost of doing business has changed. Whether you're a destination or you're a hotel or you're a client,
Yep.
I think we all agree the cost of doing business has changed. And so, we've got some work to do on the brand of our industry. I don't think that's an MPI thing. I think that's an industry thing. After what we all went through with the pandemic, we need to put a little polish on our brand and help folks that are outside of our industry to see the value in what we do, why it's important, how we impact your life, even though you're not in our industry. So I'm looking forward to my year with MPI, and we'll see if we can continue to move this industry forward as it's heading in a good direction at the moment.
Yeah, and I'm sure that with you as a leader, I love what you say about we need to focus on growth and not recovery. This is so true. The other thing I'd like to have your opinion on, I think it was by 2027, I read that the statistics said the majority of the workforce in the US will be freelancers. So how does that apply to our industry? And what would be your recommendation to people starting in our industry or thinking about starting their own business?
Yeah. You know, Eric, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll tell you what I do know. What I do know is that hotels, convention centers, museums and attractions, airports, and restaurants cannot work from home.
Mhm.
And so we will need to find that balance in our industry as to how will we do that? I don't think you nor I want a fully automated hotel. We
Nope.
never talk to anyone. Everything is a computer. My food comes through a computer. I don't think that's not the experience we want when we go to a hotel. It's not the experience you want when you go to a convention center. And that goes back to what I was saying a moment ago about our brand. We've got to invest more in our brand and why it's important and why it's exciting to be in our industry because our folks can't work from home. And so while I'm sure there will be freelancers, I'm sure today's Tuesday in our office. And so Tuesdays and Fridays at Louisville Tourism are work from home days if it's an option, if that's what you
Mhm.
want to do. And so I do know, and that's new for us. I do know we'll have to find a balance in our industry. But the thought that you're just going to have everyone work from home in this industry, it's not even possible. It's just not possible
Mhm.
because our facilities have to function with people. You got to go to the airport. You need to talk to a person. You got to check into that hotel. You need a person. You want to get to the convention center. You want to have a great meal at a restaurant. You need people. So I don't have an answer to your question
Mhm.
about freelancers. All I can tell you is what I do know. And again, I think smart people like yourself and other leaders in this industry, we're going to have to figure out what the balance is as we get to 2027 and
Yeah.
figure out how to continue to be effective in our industry. You know, if the Marriott, the Hilton, the Omni, they want to charge $400 a night for a Tuesday night stay in a hotel, you're going to have a difficult time doing that with an automated system. You
Mhm.
want some service. We're
Yep.
built on that. People want service. Hey, you can say all the things that are cute in societies you want, but I know people love good service and they will pay for good service. I mean, that's
Yep.
or places like the Ritz Carlton. I mean, that was built on service.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah. I don't have an answer for you on that one though.
Thank you.
Great
Thanks for your
question.
honesty. And I was picturing listening to you having the derby with the automated horses, automated jockey, automated
Can you imagine?
people.
We have 100 Churchill Downs seats 160,000 people. You can't do that automated. You
No.
have to have people. And so, yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but the one thing I do know, we've got to fix our brand. We've got to become, when you and I were kids, I mean, people had a pride in working at a hotel and the positions they worked at a hotel and what they did for people. And somehow or another, somewhere in our society, seeing yes, sir, no, ma'am, how may I help you has become something that is demeaning. And why should I have to say that? We should just be equals. And we've got to find our way through that. And
Mhm.
I don't have the answers for it, but we've got to find our way through that where there's a pride in working in our industry again for all of us. Listen, the first job I had was a bellman. Now, I love taking people's bags out of their car, telling them about the area, getting them up to the hotel, telling them about the hotel. Now, granted, I knew the friendlier I were, the bigger the tip was going to be. But I did. I genuinely
Yeah,
appreciated that job and interacting with people. And we've got to find our way back to that.
absolutely. I remember working for the Club Med. as a geo between 2 years at the business school. And there was a little element of bellman when people arrive in the bus and you have to take all the luggage and everything. Although, it was not in the culture of tipping over there. But I worked there for summer, and there was not one day of holidays per week, zero. The schedule was crazy. In the day you were working, in the evening you're repeating for the shows and everything.
Yeah.
And it was one of the greatest experience I had in my life that helped me later on in the business.
No.
So today, when you look at people in the industry, first of all, we spoke about that, and they don't want to be offended by anything, or they don't want to offend anybody with anything. But how do you instill in the team this sense of helping the others, of service, so that people appreciate that and make the difference and they want to come back? How do you do that?
Well, one of the things we start with is that appreciation and acknowledgement. Every staff meeting, every single letter, every single note I might get about a staff member from a customer or anyone, I will read it in the staff meetings. So they're acknowledged. Listen, you went out of the way for this customer, and sometimes it's the simplest things for folks, and they will take time to write a letter. And so I will take time to tell my full staff in a staff meeting what John or Judy or Jane did for this customer. And so I think it starts with acknowledgement so that others know that those little things matter to people. And it matters to our organization. And everyone, I read that letter and people will go, oh my God, and they will clap at the end for that individual. And so to me, it starts there. You have to acknowledge those moments and not just, I could do it and just say something to that individual, but I think it's good in a public forum where people can be recognized and their peers around them hear what they did for a customer.
Cool. Love that. Cleo, I can listen to you for hours, and I can't wait to do that again at WEC with a good cigar and a bourbon.
Sure.
Now, my last question for today, I love to ask if we meet in 1 year with a bottle of champagne, what will we be celebrating? But in this case, if we meet when we meet in 1 year with a glass of bourbon, what are we going to celebrate?
What are we going to celebrate? Well, I think for me, it will be the celebration of really bringing our community together more here. We're working hard I'll give you an example, Eric. We are Louisville tourism. There's a lot of art that's painted on murals around the city. And one of the things a lot of the neighborhoods will say is that, tourism doesn't matter to us. We don't have any hotels in our community. And so one of the thoughts we had when we did our destination strategic plan is let's create an art trail of the existing art that's in our community. And so one of the things we want to do is tell the story of the art, the artist, and why is it in that neighborhood? And with the hope that when we have leisure visitors or meeting convention visitors here who are interested in art, they can get in a car and they can go out and they can go into these neighborhoods. It drives visitors into neighborhoods where they'll eat, they'll shop. And so when I think about having a bourbon with you in a year, my goal here is always to raise the elevation of tourism. It's like what I was talking about, our brand nationally. I've got to do the same thing locally. I want to help our community to be able to understand why tourism matters. We have a program called Leave a Legacy. So let's say WEC is coming here in 2024. When WEC comes here, we have organizations that we go to all the media conventions we host and we ask them, would you mind writing a check or put a donation box for an organization locally that ties into your community? And we want to be able to go and stand in front of that local organization with our tourism meeting convention and hold a big check so that people know why tourism matters, how tourism can affect your communities. So that's what I hope to toast when I see you over bourbon, is that we've raised the elevation or we've raised the attention of tourism in our community so that people know how important it is to our community, what the impact it can have in our community.
Cleo, thank you so much. I have no doubt you're going to achieve that. I have no doubt there's going to be an amazing year as well for MPI, thanks to your leadership. Thank you very much for taking the time, and I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Eric. I'm honored that you asked me to be on your show. All my best in 2023.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business of Meeting podcast. I hope you found today's episode valuable. If you enjoyed the show, the most important thing you can do is leave a review and share it with your colleagues. It really helps spread the word. I truly appreciate your support. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, don't forget to visit eventbusinessformula.com to learn more about how we are helping even business owners like you. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.